Hello everyone, and welcome back. After rescuing the Dragon Realms from certain destruction last time, Spyro is about ready for vacation. Unfortunately, his flight's been redirected to Avalar, a realm under the control of the villainous Ripto, and Spyro's been strong-armed into helping get rid of him. Despite agreeing to help out though, this is still meant to be a holiday for Spyro, so he's going to put in as little effort into helping as he can, and as such is refusing to use any of his dragon abilities to help save the day. Can you beat Spyro 2, Gateway to Glimmer, without being a dragon? The rules are going to be identical to our run of Spyro 1. We're not allowed to use any of Spyro's dragon abilities, including Flame Breath, Flight, and Gliding. Number 2, we must get rid of sparks before continuing on in any level. And number 3, we must collect everything we can. We're going for a high completion percentage and not just aiming to beat the game. If you haven't seen the Spyro 1 run, we were able to get about halfway through the game, but after that, things went pretty off the rails. Hopefully this time we'll be able to see the whole adventure through, but we won't know until we try. So, can you beat Spyro 2, Riptos Rage, without being a dragon? I've said it both ways now, so everyone can get mad at me. Unlike in Spyro 1, we start off in an actual level instead of in a homeworld, that level being the semi-titular Glimmer. Before we can get started, we need to get rid of sparks. The easiest way to do this is to carefully work your way around to this big enemy, staying far enough away from any of the gems as to not collect them. All the gems in this area are collectible even without sparks, so if he does pick one up, it's not the end of the world, but it's the principle of the thing, you know? With sparks gone, we can now get started exploring the area proper. This time, there's not much to collect in the levels, with the main goal for now just being to get to the exit portal to score the talisman. There's one of these in each level, and we need to get all of them to beat the game, meaning we can't skip any levels we're unable to progress in this time. There's also these orbs to collect, which are more similar to the first game's collectibles. Unlike the dragons in that game though, these are collected mostly by completing mini challenges, most of which have completely different mechanics and gameplay from the main game. For the first 2/3 of this game, these seem kind of optional, but you'll need them later, so we're going to have to make sure to collect as many as we can. All the gems in the opening area are collectible and enemies defeatable, except for the one big fella who we need to use a flame on. Enter the cave and we can find this mouse being chased around by one of the lizard enemies. Behind him there's a ladder to get up to the higher platform, but we can't use it yet. That's something new that Spyro 2 adds. As we go through the game, we unlock new abilities that give us access to new areas in older levels. We get these new powers by talking to moneybags, who will sell us them for some of our hard-earned gems. This guy's made more people into anti-capitalists than Marx and Bernie combined, and while I agree he's a jerk, from a gameplay perspective, I really like his addition. In the first game, gems felt kind of useless, only being needed at like 2 points. Whereas in Spyro 2, they're a much more important collectible, and it makes me want to search them out all the more, just in case I need them. We can collect almost all of the gems in the cave except for the ones on the higher platform. For some of them we will need to bait out an attack from the larger enemies to give us an opening to grab them, but these guys attack very slow and recharge even slower, so this isn't really an issue. Head through the corridor to find the exit portal and be given the magic pick, the talisman for this world. We're not quite done here yet though, so don't head through the exit portal, instead go through the raised corridor back out into the open. In this area we can find our first power-up. This one's not active yet since we haven't defeated enough enemies to power it. Yeah, that's another thing that's changed. Enemies no longer drop gems once defeated, instead releasing this weird soul orb, and once you've gotten enough of them, the power-ups in the level will activate. Without being able to torch the big enemies in this level, we can never harvest enough souls to power this one up. Even if we could, since it's a flight power-up, we wouldn't be able to use it, making the orb associated with it unobtainable. We can find another cave in this area with a mouse inside, having trouble with one of the lizards eating his gems. He asks us to help get rid of the lizard by launching rocks at them. If we walk up to one of these small rocks, Spyro will pick it up in his mouth, and by pressing the flame button, we can send it flying at the lizard. While this does use the flame breath button, no flames are involved, we're just spitting the rock out, and as my tests confirm, dragons aren't the only creatures that can spit rocks. Once we take out the first lizard, the mouse will lead us to another. This is where we come across an old enemy of the no dragon ability run, the whirlwinds. These things seem like an innocent way to elevate yourself to otherwise unreachable platforms, but if you look carefully, when Spyro exits out of one of these, he clearly glides. Since there's no way to completely stop Spyro from gliding out of them, these whirlwinds are completely off limits. In this level, this just stops us from completing this mouse's mission for an orb, but if we ever need to use one of these to progress through the level in the main path, it's game over. Anyway, we've done everything we can do in Glimmer for now, so let's move on. Our first homeworld is Summer Forest. Something annoying about the homeworlds in this game is they don't really feature anything we can use to damage ourselves with, so if we somehow get Sparks back, we'll have to enter a level to get rid of him. Once we collect all the gems in this opening area, we can enter the nearby building. The bridge to continue the level has been broken, but we can still make it to the other side with the charging jump. In the area below the bridge there are a few more gems, and while there is a whirlwind to get back out, we can just use the stairs instead. Back outside we can find Hunter, who challenges us to traverse a series of long gaps for an orb. The first is just a simple jump, and despite Hunter insisting we'll need to glide for the second, a charging jump still does the trick. The third jump, however, is simply too long for us, meaning that this orb is unobtainable. We can't continue in this level just yet as the path continues underwater and we don't know how to swim. Moneybags says he's willing to teach us, but even with all the gems in this area collected, we're over 100 short of his price, so we'll have to go into another level first. How about Colossus? This is a world inhabited by peaceful monks, though recently a Yeti's moved in, and since they aren't the violent sort, we'll need to handle it for them. To my surprise, our charge beats the charge of the goat enemies in this level, so we can defeat them easily. Once we've collected everything, talk to the monk and they'll let us pass through to the next area. The yaks that roll at us are large enemies, so we can't get rid of them, but luckily they are pretty easy to work around. In this room there's a very long jump we usually wouldn't be able to make to continue the level, but with the high ground we can just narrowly land it. Sadly though, this jump to the next area seems to be just barely impossible. This area is optional thankfully, so we can still complete the level, but does lock us out of a good deal of gems as well as an orb. At the end of this level now, and despite this monk telling us we should torch the Yeti, the problem kind of just deals with itself, so no flames are required. Don't exit the level just yet, instead jump out this window to find a path and follow it to an ice hockey field with a monk who challenges us to score 5 points in 2 minutes. To do this, slide into the puck to pick it up with Spyro's mouth, and while pretty close to the goal, press the circle button to spit it towards the side the goalie's not guarding. Just like with the rocks in Glimmer, picking up the puck replaces our flame breath, so this is legal for the run. 2 minutes is more than enough time to score all the goals to net us an easy orb. Like a kid losing a COD lobby, the monk now challenges us to a 1v1 match. Having another guy to work around makes this slightly harder, but not by much. If they get the puck first, we'd usually flame them to get them to drop it, but since we can't do that, we have to either get the puck first or just hope that they miss their shot and scoop it up after. Aside from that, the strategy is basically the same and you should be able to easily best this loser for a second orb. That's all we can do in Colossus, so we can leave with 255 out of 400 treasure, 2 out of 3 orbs, and the talisman collected. We have more than enough gems now to convince Moneybags to give us the ability to swim. Now that we can swim, we can go back to the start of the homeworld and explore down this little pool for a handful more gems as well as an orb at the end of this path. We can also dive down into the water in this area for even more gems as well as to continue the homeworld. Before we move on though, let's visit the last level in this area, Idle Springs. The inhabitants of Idle Springs made these, idols who have sprung to life and started terrorizing the workers. Before we go on with the main path in this level, dive down into the water and head through the underwater cave to find a worker who needs our help with a few puzzles. First, we need to turn all of these blocks yellow by jumping on them. Whenever we jump on one though, any of the adjacent blocks shift color as well, making this harder. I'll be real, I have no idea of how to solve this puzzle without just randomly jumping on blocks, so you're on your own with that front, but I do know that it doesn't require any dragon abilities. After this, head back to spawn to find the worker again. They now want us to feed this giant idol head some fish. Apparently it's a picky eater though, since it'll only eat fish cooked with our flames. Trying to charge the fish into its mouth will just have us phasing through them, which means we're locked out of this orb. That's not the only bad news for this level though. In order to continue in the level, we need to get rid of these wooden idols so that the workers can unlock the doors for us. Unfortunately though, they're counted as big enemies and as such can only be dealt with a flame. I tried to find any seams in the walls I could phase through to get out of bounds and maybe continue the level that way, but no luck. As far as I know, the only way to continue this level is to torch the idols, meaning that no, it's not possible to beat Spyro 2 without being a dragon. Yeah, honestly that doesn't surprise me, with how thoroughly the challenge was failed in Spyro 1, but I'm still kinda disappointed we failed so early. I'm not a quitter though, so this is becoming a minimalist run to see how many times we need to use our dragon abilities to complete the game. For this level, there are 5 idols in the way of the main path, meaning that to get to the exit portal, we need to use our flame breath 5 times. We still have a little bit to do in this level though, so don't leave just yet. If we head out this way, we can find a series of gaps which are all just barely possible to make it across with a charging jump. Follow the path of gems and pots all the way over to this jump, which is much too far for us to make, cutting us off from the gems on the other side. Now drop down into the area with the power up for this level. Since we've defeated every enemy so far, the power up is active and it's a supercharge, which means we can actually use it. Charge through and make your way around, bashing all the stone heads the hula dancers are standing on. For whatever reason, this allows them to go deal with the big idol in the middle of the area, and for helping them, the head dancer gifts us an orb. That's all we can do in this level, so we can leave with 318 out of 400 gems, 1 out of 2 orbs, and the talisman collected. Back in Summer Forest, swim through the underwater corridor and pop up inside the castle. In this interior garden area, there's a few more levels as well as a ladder we can't climb yet, so we'll have to come back to this one. Up these stairs, head through the open door on the left to find a portal, which leads to our first flight level of the game. Of course, just like in Spyro 1, these levels are completely off limits for pretty obvious reasons, but thankfully they're also completely optional and don't have a talisman for us to collect. Down the hall a bit, there's a puzzle with these 2 doors. If we open the first one, the door behind it closes, and there's an orb behind that one. We're meant to close this first door, thus opening the one guarding the orb, then jump out this window and around into this one, but if you couldn't tell from the fact that I just failed to do this even with a glide, this isn't possible without one. In the area outside the window, collect a few more gems and then talk to Moneybags. He wants us to pay 400 gems to lower the wall, which should be a little less than half of our gem count right now. Behind the wall is another level, but we'll save this one for last. Head down the corridor, and if the door's closed, ram the big red button to open it, to end up back in the interior garden from before. Now, let's head into Hurricos. In this level, we have to pick up these light bulb things and place them into these force fields to power them down so we can progress. It's also absolutely full of these large gear grinder enemies whose attacks we'll often have to bait out or work around in order to collect what we need. You can collect all of the gems in the area, and once you have, grab the 2 light bulbs and power down the force field to continue. The power up here requires 18 enemy souls to activate, and since almost all of the enemies in this level can't be defeated, we can't power this up and thus can't destroy the large windmills. This cuts us off from a lot of the treasure and 2 of the level's orbs. These metal chests can also only be broken open with a supercharge, so their contents are off limits to us as well. Towards the back of the area, we can find a path that leads to one of these blue guys who wants our help to deal with the thieves who keep ripping out the stones that power their generators. There are 2 thieves in the area who will keep respawning. Go back and forth between them, defeating them until your counter reaches 10, at which point they'll stop spawning. Now just go around and pick up the lightning stones they were stealing and spit them back into their spots, and we'll be awarded a power orb. Back in the area with the power up, collect the last of the treasure and the light bulbs and continue on into the next area. This part is kind of just more of the same. Carefully work your way around the big guys to nab the treasure and the light bulbs. I did have this issue where the enemy by the last force field attacked and killed me during the animation of the force field deactivating, which was a little rude, but it wasn't really an issue since it stayed deactivated after I respawned. With that, we can reach the exit portal and leave Hurricos with 292 out of 400 gems collected, 1 out of 3 orbs, and the talisman nabbed. Onto Sunny Beach now. This level is home to these turtles who want our help to shepherd their babies to safety by using these tortoises to open doors. I thought this jump in the opening area might be a little bit of a challenge, but nope, it just needs a simple charging jump. I had a bit of trouble with these tortoises, especially the last one, as it seemed to have a lot of trouble getting up the ramp, but with a bit of forcing it, I got it there. There's also a couple of ladders in this level, which again we can't access till later, so add this one to the list of backtracks. We also can't complete this dude's request to save the baby turtles trapped in these boxes, since we need to use the super flame power up, which we can't even activate, let alone use. Other than that, there's not much to say here. This one's basically a straight shot to the end, and other than a few enemies that can only be beaten with a flame, it doesn't require any dragon abilities, so let's move on to the last level of this homeworld. Aquaria Towers isn't looking quite as aquary as it should, so this seahorse asks us to help fill the place back up with water just the way they like it. This level is easily the most doable so far. Once we press the button to flood an area, we can swim around basically wherever we want, meaning that there's no glides or even really jumps to worry about. All the enemies are defeatable with a charge as well, with the exception of these metal sharks, which we need the super flame to deal with. Without being able to get rid of them, we can't collect a few of the gems they guard, but we can still get the ones on the main path by paying Moneybags off to use his submarine. Once we loop back around to the start of the level, the water will be high enough that we can escape through a hole in the ceiling and into the open ocean. Talk to Hunter and he'll want our help to train his pet manta ray. We need to follow this seahorse around on the manta ray's back, swimming through the rings it farts out. It's pretty easy, and once done, Hunter will give us an orb and ask if we'd like to try a harder course. It's longer and has a few tighter turns, but this really isn't that much harder than the last one, and for completing this, Hunter will give us another orb. No clue why he was withholding this one from us when he's meant to be on our side. Kinda sussy, but anyway. Now, go talk to the Seahorse King. They need our help to rescue their babies from the top of the numbered towers you've probably noticed through the level. The king will open them in sequential order, so all we need to worry about is making it to the top of each one alive, and we'll be awarded another orb. That's all we can do here, so we can leave Aquaria Towers with 325 out of 500 treasure, all orbs, and the talisman collected. Now that we have all of the talismans in Summer Forest, we can go talk to Allura, who will open up this door, and we can drop down the hole behind it for our first boss fight, Crush. Unlike the bosses in Spyro 1, which were basically just glorified level gimmicks, these dudes are required to beat to continue, and unfortunately, Crush is immune to our charge. There's not really much I can do here, so since Crush requires 7 hits to beat, we need to use 7 more flames, for a total of 12 uses so far. Other than that though, Crush isn't all that hard, so we liberate this homeworld and move on to the next one, Autumn Plains. Before we do anything else here, run through the level to find Moneybag standing by a ladder, and if we talk to him we can finally learn how to climb these things for a small price of 500 gems. Despite just getting here, let's backtrack to Summer Forest and finish off the levels we couldn't. First off, back in Glimmer we can climb this ladder to find a powered down Super Flame power up, which we obviously can't use. So all this gives us is a handful more gems, bringing our total in Glimmer to 326 out of 400 gems and 1 talisman and none of the orbs. Over in Sunny Beach now, we can climb this first ladder for a couple more gems, but more importantly we can now climb the one at the end of the level to meet this chef who's trying to cook some of these turtles. They're weirdly chill about it though, and give us a chance to save the turtles by keeping them out of their pot. Though the turtles seem pretty eager, so not sure why we're really trying to help them. As they appear, bash them into the nearby water, and once we've saved all 3, the chef will give us an orb to try and get us to leave them alone. We're not done being a nuisance yet though. Round 2 is the same, but more, and once we've fully killed the chef's dreams of turtle stew, they'll give us a second orb in defeat, meaning we can leave Sunny Beach with 355 out of 400 gems, 2 out of 3 orbs, and the talisman nabbed. We can also climb up this ladder in Summer Forest for some more gems, as well as another orb, meaning we can finish up in Summer Forest collecting 2 out of 4 orbs, 394 out of 400 treasure, and can finally move on to the next homeworld proper. If we talk to Allura, she'll activate a whirlwind for us, which worried me at first, but the only level this thing leads to is a speedway, so all we lose not being able to access this is a few measly gems. Once we've nabbed all of the treasure in the area, go use the ladder over where we learnt to climb and make your way into the interior of the castle. Head through until you find a closed door being guarded by the professor, who tells us we need orbs to power it, but if you've been a good little lemming so far and followed all of my instructions, you should already have ample for this. Not long after, we find Moneybags offering to open up a path to another portal for 400 gems, which is well within our budget. Cross the bridge to the portals and find a few more gems before continuing on in the level. Moneybags has apparently learned how to teleport or something, because despite being just over here around the corner, he's now somehow gotten himself off to this distant island. No clue how he managed that. There's no way a charging jump can make this, so I thought we might need to use our first required glide of the run, but in my testing I found out that the portal over here just leads to another speedway, which we need to pay Moneybags to open anyway, so just ignore this little island entirely. If we turn around, we can ram this strange looking part of the wall to find a secret path. We can collect a few gems back here, but sadly our path is soon blocked by a whirlwind. Even if we could use this, there's another whirlwind on the castle roof, and even if we could use that, I doubt we could make this jump for the orb in the distance without a glide. I had thought we might be able to get the other orb out on the castle wall by jumping on these little pieces of the castle, which is possible, but only with a glide, meaning that this orb is out of reach as well. With that, we've collected everything we can in the homeworld, so we can get into the actual levels, adding 233 out of 400 gems and no orbs to our total. Crystal Glacier is up first, and this one is failed instantly. The gimmick of this level is that we need to thaw out frozen cavemen, and take a guess at how we do that. There's not even a single gem on the first platform, and we can't get to the next one until we thaw out 3 cavemen who will launch us over to the next area, and this one's not any better. There's 4 cavemen to defrost here, and on top of that there are these ice dudes throwing snowballs around, which will refreeze any cavemen we free, and you guessed it, they're immune to our charge, meaning that we have to flame each of them as well. Luckily, we can minimize this a little. Some of these dudes are close enough to the frozen cavemen that by doing a quick turnaround we can defrost the cavemen and take out the enemy in one burst of flame. First, deal with the enemy up here, as they can refreeze multiple cavemen from this position. Next, place yourself in between this caveman and enemy. Aim at either of them and press the circle button to flame, then quickly turn towards the other. If done perfectly, you should be able to hit both of them with one flame. We can do this same trick with the pair down here, but everyone else is too spread out, so we'll need to use 1 flame each, meaning we can clear this area with only 6 flames. There's also these little bottles with dynamite strapped to them in the area. We need to flame these to start a timer for them to explode, which obviously we can't do. Climb the cavemen to get into the next area. These rabbits really annoyed me. It felt like they would pop up out of nowhere and get me, and sometimes even when I charged them, it wouldn't take them out. We have another run-in with Moneybags here who offers to rebuild the bridge for 200 gems. We don't really have another option, so pay the man and move on. Go through the building and turn to the right to find more frozen cavemen and ice enemies. The one on the bridge requires a flame to itself, but the ones directly behind can both be got in 1 flame, though this is pretty tight to perform. I thought we could get the last 4 with only 2 flames, but either of these enemies can freeze both of the cavemen, so they both need to be gone before we can start freeing them, and since the enemies are just barely too far apart to get in 1 flame, we need to do everything individually, making this area take another 6 flames. The cavemen are able to free their leader, who gives us the talisman. Before we can leave though, there's still some areas to explore. Across the bridge there's this shaman who's lost their pet snow leopard and asks us to help find him. We can corral the leopard around, but he occasionally gets distracted by these fish that jump out of the water, and just like the fish in Idle Springs, they don't react to our horns, making this mission uncompletable. For the other orb in this level, we have to defeat these spider creatures hanging around the caves down here. We have more than enough souls to power the up, but since it's a flight power up, it can't be used, making this another unobtainable orb. We can at least make our way around the caves to collect all of the treasure. I had thought this jump was going to be impossible, but I stuck at it and actually managed to make it. We can't get back up to the rest of the level, so just use the pause screen to exit the level with the talisman got, no orbs, and 360 out of 400 treasure banked. Breeze Harbor is our next destination. This place is home to these fine upstanding birds who are at war with these evil grubs. The birds ask us to help get their boilers running again, and yep, to do that we need to ignite the flames under them, meaning this is another level that requires dragon abilities. Worse still, not only are we required to use our flames, but stoking the first fire activates a whirlwind, which we need to use to access the next area, making this the first level of the game that actually requires a glide. Up in the next area, we can't defeat these firefighting grubs with a charge, but if we jump on the nearby cannon, we can take them out with this. At first, I figured the cannons in this game would require us to use our flames to activate, just like the ones in Spyro 1, but if we look at the animation, no flame comes out of Spyro's mouth, making these things completely above board. With this cannon, we can take out this grub as well as the one off in the distance. We can also use this to take out the creepy smiling mine, and with a perfectly aimed shot, we can get the one behind this wall as well. We can also use this to break open the metal chest to get a few more gems. Dive for the gems in the water, and then once you've collected them, use another flame to activate this boiler, raising the water level so we can continue. For the next flame, it's not enough to just light it, as this grub insists it's better off extinguished. It's pretty close to the flame though, so by doing a quick 180, we can take the grub out and light the flame in one breath. Before moving on, run over here to talk to this bird who wants us to destroy 8 mines around the level. We've already dealt with 2 of them, and there's another 2 popping in and out of the lava here which we can easily destroy with a nearby cannon. Don't bother breaking this chest though, as the gems will fall back at the start of the level, and if we go back there we'll need to add another glide to our tally thanks to the whirlwind. Jump on one of the floating boats to continue in the level. Turn off into this little area to find another cannon which we can use to deal with the rest of the mines to score an orb. Even if we defeat every enemy we can in this level, we still wouldn't have enough to activate the power up to get up to this little area, so unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, there's not going to be any
trouble with the trolley, eh?
For this playthrough. For the next boiler, again we can deal with the grub trying to extinguish it in the same breath we ignite it for one more use of flame. This leads to another unavoidable glide though, as the catapult that this powers sends us flying into a glide and there's no other way to get onto the airship besides this. Finally, on the airship, these little grubs running around will put out the flames, so we need to deal with them first with a charge before lighting both of these. The birds will thank us for our help and give us their talisman, and with that we can exit Breeze Harbor with 1 out of 2 orbs, 296 out of 400 treasure, and the talisman collected. If we go up this ramp in the homeworld, we can find moneybags who we can pay to give us access to the next level, Zephyr. This place is home to these fine upstanding grubs who are at war with these evil birds. That's right, Spyro is both sides in this war. The grubs want our little purple mercenary here to blow up the birds' munition supply. This level feels way more like an active war zone than Breeze Harbor did, thanks to these birds constantly peppering us with missiles. Using this little hill as a ramp, we can manage to take out the 2 birds flying around this pillar, though your timing has to be perfect or else you'll likely get a face full of missile. After dealing with them, I'd recommend making a straight shot to the cannon and using it to clear out the last enemies in the area, as well as breaking the floating vase, then backtrack and collect everything you've missed. Now, use the cannon to break down the door and head inside. These birds that roll TNT barrels at us aren't too hard to avoid, but they do attack very quickly, so try not to stay in one spot for too long. Head back outside and use the cannon to blast down the door, and now we come across our first problem spot. Despite this gap looking like we should be able to cross it with a charging jump, no matter how many times I tried, I just couldn't make it. What makes this worse is that if you fall down the gap, the only way back up is to use this whirlwind, meaning without exiting the level, we're stuck down here. While we're down here, we might as well collect what we can, but be aware of the enemies flying around above that can still attack us, so just like before, keep moving around to avoid getting hit. Talk to Bo Peep, who wants us to corral their lost cowlicks. We can find 3 of them in the area and we need to charge them over into the pen. Now head back towards the whirlwind and go into this cave. In here we can find Romeo, who needs our help getting to Juliet. To do this, we need to use these seeds to create platforms to get to higher areas. We can plant one here to grab another seed, but in order to re-obtain the one we already used, we need to burn the platform it created. Since we need every seed we can, not being able to get this one back locks us out of Romeo and Juliet's 2 orbs. There are 2 more cowlicks in the area though, and with a bit of bashing we can get them back to Bo Peep's pen for our first orb. They then ask us to find their 2 last cowlicks for another orb. We can find them in the area up this ladder, but we can't get them back to the pen since in order to get them out of this ditch we need to use the super flame power up, since burning their tuchuses launches them much higher than charging them. There's also this pot in the area that if we break will teleport back through the level, and if we repeat this a few times we'll get a bunch of gems. We can't actually do this one since we can't backtrack through the level without using the forbidden whirlwind. Now exit and re-enter the level and make your way back to the jump we missed before, and do it properly this time. Make your way past the birds chucking TNT and jump onto the cannon to destroy the bird's munition supply. We can also break open this metal chest which will spew its contents out everywhere. Scrounge up the last of the gems and head over to what's left of the munition stockpile. Thankfully we can make this jump without a glide this time. With the cycle of violence between birds and grubs secured, we can get the talisman and leave Zephyr with 1 out of 4 orbs and 276 out of 400 treasure. Now let's go to the Skeletus Badlands. The story for this level is pretty simple. This caveman's bet their friends that we won't be able to make it through the Badlands alive, and we just have to prove them wrong. Both of the main enemy types in this level can be dealt with a charge, however there's these lava rocks around the place that we can pick up and spit out instead to take them out from a safer distance. We can't use these rocks to destroy the metal chest or activate the rocket towards the end of the level, keeping us from some sweet gems. Talk to this caveman and they'll ask us to save the villagers from some recently hatched lava lizards, which I'd love to help them out with, but since a charge can't deal with the lizards, you're on your own. I had thought of maybe using the lava rocks to do this mission, but they don't have enough power to deal with the lizards either, and even if they did, these things hatch way too fast for us to grab a rock, come back and take one out before they eat more villagers. Before we leave the area, grab one more lava rock and take out the dino playing with a bone up here, and grab the bone as we'll need it later. Head into the cave and immediately go to the left to exit again. Deal with the enemies here, then take out the dino at the end to grab a second bone. We can also use one of the lava rocks to legally break open the explosive pot here before heading back into the cave. Up these rocky stairs, grab a lava rock and spit them into the bone barrier. It'll take 3 rocks to break it down, but once done we can charge jump into this little room for another bone to collect. Exit the cave and take out these 2 closest enemies. If you've taken out every other enemy so far, you should now have just enough souls reaped to activate the power up in this level, so backtrack into the cave and use the defense power up. This will let us walk on the lava in this room for a 4th bone. Now we're fully done in the cave, we can exit for real this time. Talk to this caveman whose skeleton friend's bones have been stolen, which just so happen to be the bones we've been collecting so far. There are 2 more in the area. Jump up on these bone platforms and with a perfect charging jump we can cross these gaps to get another bone. Then jump onto the pillar in the middle. We're usually meant to glide around to the platform on the other side, but there are a few bits of geometry sticking out we can get a foothold on and just walk around to the other side to score another bone. While we're here, do a charging jump onto this little platform surrounded by lava to score another gem. There's no platform we can reach from here though, so just take a lava bath to respawn at the earlier checkpoint. Before we move on from this area, use the defense power up to grab the gems in the lava and also collect everything up in the area with the missile. There's also one of those moving pots from the last level here, so smash that while we're at it. Grab the defense power up again and use it to safely traverse up the lava stairs. You'll want to be quick about it as it won't last forever and you'll need it to last at least long enough that we can get this bone back from the dino in the lava. The second moving pod is here too, so break that, then quickly jump across the sinking platforms to get to the last bone. As thanks for our help, we get another orb, but we also have to watch this skeleton flossing, so was it really worth it? The moving pot will now be all the way back at the start of the first cave, so head back there and break it, causing it to move near to the bone staircase where we can break it again to score our final gem for the level. With all of that done, we can go talk to the caveman at the end of the level who will open up the exit portal so we can leave with 1 out of 3 orbs, the talisman, and 389 out of 400 treasures scored. Next up is Scorch, where we need to help this kid's secret agent based off a fairy tale character infiltrate an Arabian palace to rescue her brother. Yeah, this might be the weirdest level setup yet. Be careful with the purple dudes with swords as their jump attacks have a deceptively long range. You should also try and attack the enemies with slingshots from the same level as them, as when I tried to do it from above it didn't end well for either of us. Once you've collected all of the treasure here, headbutt the button to raise the flag and open the gate to continue. In the next area, turn to the left and up the stairs immediately to find Hunter, who's trying to capture all of the monkeys lost from the Avalar Zoo. He needs us to drop them into his basket as he gets close enough, while also making sure they don't hit him with any coconuts. These escort missions are a reoccurring mission type in Spyro 2 and later Spyro 3 and are easily some of the most annoying in the games. This one isn't too challenging as Hunter's path is pretty clear, but since we don't have sparks it means we can't just focus on defending him since one hit on us will force a restart too. After a few tries you should know the path well and be able to apprehend all of the monkeys to be awarded an orb. Go back into the area down the stairs to collect the gems and defeat all of the enemies. There's a metal chest here which, no surprise, we can't break, so just ignore it. All the gaps to the gate control can be navigated with a charging jump, so we can press the button and move on. The next area is really just more of the same. Defeat the enemies, collect the gems, and press the button to lower the drawbridge. Before we cross it, go down this little path underneath for some more gems, but it ends in a whirlwind so we can't continue. With that done, cross the drawbridge. Again, in this area, just do as you've done before. This level's pretty straightforward design-wise. Soon, we'll meet up with Greta, who will give us the talisman for our help. Up these stairs we can find Handel, but his orb requires the use of the super flame power-up behind him, which I really shouldn't have to explain at this point, but we can't use. Collect whatever gems are left in the area and we can leave with 294 out of 400 treasure recovered, 1 out of 2 orbs swiped, and the talisman obtained. Onto Fractured Hills now. Here, these earth shapers have turned the locals into stone since they wouldn't stop playing their bagpipes, and as someone with a mum who played bagpipes, I'm honestly on their side. If my mum's watching this, disregard that, your bagpipe music was very lovely. Anyway, it's our job to free them, which luckily can be done with a simple charge. I'll cut to the chase. I hate this level in this run, purely for one fact: the enemies. They come in 2 forms, neither of which can be taken out with a charge. First, there are these trees with beehives in them. They can send the bees out at us, which has a bit of an unclear range, but in general, these enemies aren't too bad. What is too bad are the bloody trees that chase after you at breakneck speed. These things are super fast, making getting away from them pretty hard, but they also have an inconsistent range, both for how far away they can attack you from and also in how long they can actually chase you for. Their bloodlust is also so strong they can break free of the bounds of where they should be able to reach just to get you. And worst of all, these guys are just plain creepy, the way they chase after you with their eyes wide and mouth agape. If there are any gems being guarded by these things, you can bait the trees out and run in to grab them, but there's a good chance that it'll end up being a death run. Anyway, work your way around the grassy area, freeing sages from their stony prison. When we get to this fawn, they'll ask us to free their friend from the locked room behind them. We need to supercharge around the whole map to circle back to this door and break it down, but since we can't commit mass deforestation on the damn enemies in this level, we don't have any souls to power up the supercharge, so this one is out of the question. Free the last sage who will give us access to the temple, but before we go there, jump down into the area with the lava to collect all of the gems. The earth shapers down here can't be dealt with a normal charge, but they are much easier to work around than the trees up top. There's another area connected to this where there are some more gems as well as this dude, the alchemist. They need us to escort them past the earth shapers so they can use a potion to free Hunter, who's stuck in a rock. We can do this mission, but put a pin in it for now and we'll come back later. If you know, you know. There's also a lower area like this at the start of the level we still need to explore for some more gems. There's a whirlwind to get out of the area, but we can also escape by heading up here and charge jumping back onto the main path. With that, we can go into the temple to collect the talisman and leave for now. Next up, Magma Cone. The fawns here need our help to clear out the Earth Shapers and shut off the volcano so they can have a party. The little Earth Shapers will run away from us, but if you can chase them down, they can be taken out with a charge. For the bigger Earth Shapers, we need to ram into them to put them into range for one of the fawns to deal the final blow. Don't forget to collect a few gems on the little pathway above the lava here. We can get to the higher area around this first area by climbing this ladder and doing a charging jump here over towards the right. Once you've nabbed all of the gems, go back to where you jumped onto this platform and do a jump around the wall to get back to where you were. We can't make this jump over to where the explosive pot is, but as far as I can tell there's nothing up here for us to actually collect, so no big loss. Bash the Earth Shaper into the Fawn's Wrecking Ball and move on. The next Earth Shaper requires a few hits to get into position, but this isn't all that much harder really. Head up the ladder and cross the bridge and talk to Moneybags, who wants us to pay to activate the elevator down into the volcano. At first I thought this would be a whirlwind, but no, it's actually a physical elevator so we can use it without any guilt. Down here, first we want to jump around the bottom of the volcano to collect all of the gems before we climb up. We have to avoid falling lava rocks as we climb, so keep your eyes up and your wits about you, and once we've shut off the volcano we'll be awarded a talisman. There's no way to get over to the platform with the power up without gliding, and even less of a way back, so not really much more to be done here, meaning we can leave Lava Cone gaining 254 out of 400 treasure, no new orbs, and the talisman. Finally, for Autumn Plains, we have Shady Oasis. There are some hungry hippos here that need us to feed them fruits from these trees, and thankfully they even specify that we can just charge them. This one's pretty simple, just follow the hippos around, feeding them fruit to inflate them when necessary so they can clear the path for us. All the enemies in this level can be dealt with a charge, even the dudes with shields, though it usually takes an extra hit. In this area, the tree is across a gap I wasn't sure if we could cross, but I managed to get it in just a few attempts. From here it's basically a straight shot to the end to get the talisman. Talk to the hippo here who wants us to catch some thieves who have taken their magic lamps. Sadly, these aren't the same na thieves as in Spyro 1, which disappointed me since I have a soft spot for those little jerks. Anyways, all of the thieves in this area are pretty easy to catch and definitely don't need any dragon abilities. Just chase them around till you get them and you'll get an easy orb. In the area below the exit portal platform there's this weird chest with a target on it which we can't open yet, so we'll have to come back to this level later. Since we've taken out all of the enemies here, the defense power up is up and running, which is good since we'll need it to complete this hippo's request. Though we still need another ability apparently, so again we'll have to come back to this. Lastly, there's a moving pot just below the platform with the exit portal. From here, it'll move to these platforms down by the poison water, then a little further back into the level to this platform, then finally all the way back to the start, finally giving us our reward. That's everything for now, so we can leave Shady Oasis. That's the last of the levels, and with all the talismans collected, we can now challenge Gulp, and this one had me stuck for quite a bit. Gulp is already considerably harder than Crush to beat, but with these rules there's some extra annoyances making it even worse. In order to damage Gulp, we need to use the weapons dropped into the arena by these pterodactyls in their eggs. These things will also occasionally drop chickens to heal us if we've taken any damage. Since we've got to do this battle without sparks, a lot of our weapon drops are going to be taken up by these chickens, meaning we'll have to wait even longer between getting chances to attack. At first, Gulp will charge after us to attack, and the pterodactyls will drop these metal barrels, which we just have to bash into him. In the next phase, Gulp will stand in the middle of the arena and shoot at us with cannons. These things are really annoying to avoid as they aim where we're gonna be rather than where we are, so we have to actively try to avoid them rather than just outrunning them. They also leave a hitbox on the floor which can hit us a good while after the shot lands. This time, the pterodactyls drop these bombs which we have to blast with flames to light and send flying into Gulp. There is actually a way to get around this flame though. Between the phases, Gulp will clear the field of any leftover weapons, as well as destroying any that haven't landed yet. However, there is a brief moment when the egg holding the weapon hatches that if Gulp clears the field, the weapon inside won't actually be destroyed. In my successful run at this level, this actually occurred, leaving behind a metal barrel I could use to damage Gulp instead of the bomb. Whether or not you could do this consistently enough to call it a strategy, I don't really know, but the fact that I was able to do this at all is enough for me to say that this flame isn't technically required. The next phase is the same as the last, but this time the weapon of choice are these missiles which we can pick up and spit out at Gulp. These won't be destroyed by Gulp between phases as long as they're in our mouth, so if we pick one up and wait for another to appear, we can hit Gulp, then quickly pick up another and use it to deal the second hit of damage. Congratulations! You've completed this boss's tutorial. For the rest of this fight, random weapons will be dropped rather than anything specific, meaning we can choose to only use weapons that don't require any dragon abilities, but also means we could end up waiting much longer to actually get a usable weapon. Gulp's cannon attack has now changed from 2 to 4 shots, making it even harder to avoid. On top of this, he's now after the same weapons we are. The attacks he uses when he gets these aren't too much to write home over, but if he eats our weapons before we can, it just adds to how long we have to wait to actually get an attack in. And worst of all, Gulp also now eats the chickens that spawn, and yep, they heal them. Since we don't have any health, these things are constantly appearing, meaning that we have to get rid of them or else Gulp would just heal back up to full without us having a chance to damage him. Whenever we ram a chicken, we'll automatically get sparks back, so you'll have to intentionally take a hit of damage before continuing in the fight. This fight took me over an hour to complete. You have to focus on so much at once and it's so easy to die, and even if you get lucky with weapon drops, it's a pretty long battle, giving you plenty of chances to slip up at the end, forcing a restart. As much difficulty as I had with this, I don't really have many tips. You kinda just gotta play perfectly and get lucky, but the important thing to know here is that it is possible to do without using any dragon abilities, if only thanks to a minor glitch. With that, Ripto is defeated and the day is saved. Allura sets Spyro up to take a load off while everyone else works with the professor to get the portal back home working. Though, it turns out I might have spoken a little too soon with the whole Ripto's defeated and the day is saved thing, since he pops back up in Winter Tundra stopping the professor's efforts, so the adventure continues. Quickly rush over to Moneybags and pay him to learn the head bash move. This ability lets us jump into the air and press the triangle button to bash back down to the ground. With that, let's go back to some older levels to try this thing out. First, head to Fractured Hills and head back to where we met the Alchemist. If you remember, he needs us to escort him past the Earth Shapers. We just need to ram into them to stop them from hitting the Alchemist, but this section is pretty infamously hard due to the route this guy takes, seemingly trying to get himself killed. Once through the pass, the Alchemist will free Hunter, who will give us an orb for our troubles. Now, if you're not in the know, you might be confused why we couldn't do this challenge before learning the head bash, as we didn't need it for this orb. Well, once we complete the Alchemist requests, Hunter asks us to help him take out the Earth Shapers in the area for good. To do this, he knocks them down and we just need to head bash them to finish them off. It's a pretty easy orb to get, but if you haven't learnt the head bash yet and complete the Alchemist quest, when you come back to do Hunters, you'll have to replay the Alchemists first, this time for no reward. Given how annoying that mission can be, it's best to just leave both of these until you've learnt the head bash to save any unnecessary headaches. Even with the enemy souls we've gotten from the Earth Shapers, we still don't have anywhere near enough to activate the supercharge, so that orb is still off limits to us. So we're done in Fractured Hills, leaving with the Talisman, 2 out of 3 orbs, and 365 treasure in hand. In Shady Oasis, work your way back through the level and to the end to drop below the final platform and head bash this chest open for some more gems. Now go over to the hippo whose mission we couldn't complete before. Their friends have been trapped in stone and are going to sink into the toxic water if we don't free them. Grab the defense power up so we don't die in the water and just head bash the hippos as they appear. It's pretty easy, and with that we're awarded an orb. Now we can put a bow on this level, getting 360 gems, 2 out of 2 orbs, and the talisman. With all the older levels finished off, we can get into Winter Tundra for real now. Use the head bash on the rocks and target chest in the first area for a few more gems, and on the big rock for a very easy orb. Down the hall to the right we can find the professor, who thanks to the orbs we've collected thus far can open the portal here to a new level, but we'll keep exploring for now. Head through the door to the next area and collect all the gems. There's another path to the right here where we can find the professor and a portal, but this time we're a few orbs short to power it up, but we'll be back. Head up the stairs in the main area. Ripto's locked himself behind a door up here, and for whatever reason we need a large stockpile of orbs to open it, so again we'll have to come back. From up here we can drop down onto the castle walls to collect another orb. Continue around the walls collecting all the treasure until you find this hole. Dive in and swim around the underwater cavern until you pop out the other end to grab the last orb. In the area below this we can find money bags offering to open up a speedway, but keep your gems, there's no point opening up a level we can't even use. Head back to the first area and we're done with this homeworld. There's a few more gems behind the door to Ripto's arena, but I'll just spoil the totals now. We finish having collected 3 out of 3 orbs and 399 out of 400 treasure. Right, let's head into Mystic Marsh now. This level has these snail elephant things which act very similarly to those bloody trees in Fractured Hills. There are a lot less of them thankfully, and they make a lot more noise, making it harder for them to sneak up on us. The rhino snails can be taken out with a charge, as well as the monkeys in the trees that throw very familiar looking fruit. Jump over to the other side of the river at the start of the level to collect all the treasure before jumping back and continuing through the level. Getting all the treasure guarded by the elephants might take a few runs, but you should be able to scoop up all of the gems. Be sure to also grab the gems in the stream running through this area. Once we've done everything we can, head over to the whirlwind. Unfortunately, this is required to get up to the higher areas of the level, but since all the gaps along the walkways are doable with charging jumps, it's luckily the only one. Take the path to the right first and go around taking out all the enemies, which should now be enough to give us access to the power-ups of this level. Now head back over to and jump onto the spiral path to the left and collect all the gems. We can't make the jump across to this building, but it doesn't matter since now with the power-ups active we can get to the next area regardless. Instead though, for now, take the path back to the right and jump over to this area. Dive down into the water and pop out onto this platform. Dive down into the water here and collect everything to pop out again. Find the wizard here who will open up the portal back home as well as gifting us an orb. Yeah, for the levels in Winter Tundra we don't get talismans upon completing levels, rather orbs. Grab the gems in the area and then dive down into this pond here and pop out onto a wooden bridge and use a charging jump to get across this gap. If we talk to the explorer here, he'll tell us that he's had his spark plug stolen by thieves, though again not the fun na thieves from the first game sadly. Before we chase them down, do a charging jump at this floating pot when it's at its lowest point to knock it out of the air and score some more treasure. Now for the thieves. The first one is down by the jump power up in this area. I'd recommend chasing them into the power up rather than away from it, as this charging jump isn't the easiest to make going that way and we don't really have time to line it up perfectly. When you follow them up the power up, try not to overshoot them and you'll have this spark plug in no time. The next one is cross the water from the start of the level. Usually the elephant would be a problem here, but I managed to get it stuck across the bridge, making this actually the easiest spark plug to get. The next one runs around the walkways above the starting area. As I mentioned before, it's impossible to make this jump without a glide, but it is possible to make the jump coming the other way, so we have to chase the thief that way. The hardest part of this is the spiral path leading up. It's very easy to not take the turn tight enough and fall off the edge, or not take the jump from the right angle, making this gap impossible to cross, but with enough running around the path, you'll get a feel for it and eventually nab the thief. The last one is over in this cave here. Don't jump after them as they glide out of the cave, as I found that just slowed me down. We also want to avoid the deep water in the cave, as swimming will completely kill our momentum. Other than that, just take shortcuts around the track where you can and you'll eventually close the gap on the thief and nab the last spark plug. The explorer will thank us for our troubles and gift us an orb. We're not done in this level just yet though. At the top of the whirlwind we used earlier, we can jump down onto the other side to find the professor who's lost his pencil. He gives us an egg and asks us to trade it up for his pencil. Go to the higher part of the level and spit the egg into the bird's nest. The bird will return it and drop a seed which we can spit into the nearby pot to grow a plant which will spit out a rubber duck. Take that rubber duck over to the non-rubber ducks who will give us a turnip. Take that into the cave where we caught the last thief and spit it into the cauldron to get a coin which we can spit into the fountain to wish for this chain of trades to be over and hey look, the pencil. Take that to the professor and boom, easy if somewhat tedious orb. Now we've done everything we can, so we can leave with all orbs and 375 out of 400 treasure banked. On to the level that the professor unlocked for us before, Cloud Temples. The wizards here have had their magic wands stolen by the nefarious warlocks and it's our job to get them back. Seems like the warlocks put on their charge resistant pants today though, so the only way we can take them out is with a flame. Thankfully all of the other enemies in this level can be taken out just with a charge. These little imp dudes drop lava rocks when we take them out, which we're going to want to pick up and save for later. Our path is soon blocked by a whirlwind, meaning that this level not only requires a few flames, but a glide as well. The gap from the roof over to the next building is doable with a charging jump, if only just barely. Here we come across another warlock who we'd usually need to use a flame to defeat, but if you've been an attentive viewer you should still have a lava rock with you, which we can spit out at the warlock, which is enough to defeat them, saving us one flame. To get over to the next area we're going to need to use another glide, but before you do make sure to pick up another lava rock from one of these imps so you can use it to defeat the warlock over here. Over to the left we can find this guy, Agent Zero. He's a secret agent, on his way to his secret agent clubhouse, and he doesn't want us following him. Usually we'd have to carefully stalk him, hiding behind trees and platforms and the like to get into his secret hideout for an orb, but this long gap stops us in our tracks, so no orb for us I'm afraid. Back on the main path we can make it all the way to the last warlock. Unfortunately there are no imps to harvest lava rocks from in the area, and we have to use the one we brought from the last area on the previous warlock to even get here, so we'll have to use a flame on this one as well. With that, the wizard gives us an orb and an exit portal appears. There's one more mission in this level I was a little torn on. We have to use this ice breath power up to freeze all the fire dudes so we can use them as stairs to get to the higher areas. I was thinking I'd allow this just like with spitting stones and lava rocks as no flame is involved, but on closer consideration this feels different to me. With the lava rocks and stones they act as a replacement to Spyro's fire breath, and once we've spat the rock out we can't use them again until we pick up another, but here Spyro seems to be producing the ice projectile himself. That means that this is less of a replacement to the fire breath and more like a modification, which means that logically Spyro wouldn't be able to use this power if he weren't a dragon. People might disagree with me on that, but to be on the safe side, I'm gonna not do this mission, meaning that we're done here, and can leave with 221 out of 400 treasure and 1 out of 3 orbs collected. Now, let's head for Robotica farms. The farmers here are having a bit of an insect infestation and need us to go turn on the big bug zapper to deal with them. This level gives us these yellow balls which we can use to easily dispatch any of the enemies from a safe distance. I had thought we might be able to take these bugs out with the yellow balls, but spitting them at them does nothing, so that's another uncollectible orb. This jump can be a little bit tricky as it's already a bit on the long side, but we also have to keep in mind that the windmill blades occasionally block our path. Also, we have to make it off one of these platforms that basically act as a seesaw, meaning that as we run on it, our trajectory will start to aim lower. All of that said, it isn't that hard of a jump, but it might take you a few more tries than usual. After this, it's basically a straight shot to the end of the level to get an orb. There is another orb we can get for supercharging around this track, breaking all the pumpkins, but we can't even get to the quest giver to start this without gliding to them from the end platform or using the whirlwind below, so let's just leave with 1 out of 3 orbs and 261 out of 400 treasure in hand. If we head over to the portal we couldn't open before, we now have more than enough orb power to start it up, so let's head into Metropolis. The city is under attack from these animals that have escaped from the local farm. The pig enemies can be charged, but they'll also kind of just handle themselves if we leave them to their own devices. We can also take out the cows by ramming a pig enemy into them, but they're all also easy to get around, and spoiler, we're not going to be able to use the power up at the end of the level anyway, so don't worry about taking them out too much. About halfway through the level we can find this large ox who's taken over the armory. We need to send bombs flying into it, but since the arena is covered in ice we can't charge them, meaning that the only option is to flame them, locking this orb off. Honestly, this is another level that's pretty much a straight shot to the end, and we can easily get through it without using any dragon abilities to be awarded an orb. For the last 2 orbs of the level we need to deal with the sheep and flying saucers, and to help with this we're given access to the first ever state-of-the-art dual super flight and flame power-up. This one's doubly off limits. We can still collect some of the gems on the flight path, so we can leave Metropolis with 234 out of 400 gems and 1 out of 4 orbs. With all of the levels complete, we come across a bit of a problem. To open the door to Ripto, we need the power of 40 orbs, but we currently only have 28, and we've already done every mission that doesn't require any dragon abilities. So yep, you know what that means, we're gonna have to backtrack through all the levels for more orbs. Without any 0 dragon ability orbs left, I figure the next best thing would be orbs that require just 1 use of them. First off, back to Magma Cone. From just below this ladder, near where we paid money bags to activate the elevator, if we do a glide around the volcano we can land on a platform on the other side. Down the hole we can find a bunch more gems as well as Hunter, who has a challenge for us. Occasionally these gems will shoot up out of the cracks in the ground and we have to collect more of them than Hunter. The best part of this is that there are 2 levels to it, which means that this one glide can get us 2 orbs. The second level is a lot harder though. We need to collect way more this time, and Hunter is much more aggressive, meaning we have to steal as many of them away from him as we can, but hard doesn't mean impossible, meaning we can update our total for this level to 2 out of 3 orbs and 301 out of 400 treasure. In Cloud Temple we can follow Agent Zero across this gap now to make it all the way to his secret hideout, giving us 2 out of 3 orbs and 287 out of 400 gems for this level. And in Robotica Farms we can use this whirlwind to get up to the supercharge path. It's a little hard to break through all of the pumpkins in one go without falling off and needing to use the whirlwind a second time, but again, hard isn't impossible, so we can score 353 out of 400 treasure and 2 out of 3 orbs in Robotica Farms. All the way back in Summer Forest, we can glide out this window into the other for another orb, but well, as far as I can tell, that's all of the orbs that only require 1 dragon ability. I really thought there would be more of them, but I guess the next best option is 2 uses. Just so happens that the last orb in Summer Forest, the one for completing Hunter's gliding tutorial, also requires 2 glides, bringing us to 394 out of 400 treasure and all 4 orbs in Summer Forest. We only need to flame 2 more enemies in Breeze Harbor to get the jump power up functional, so I might have spoken a bit too soon when I said we wouldn't be having any
trouble with the trolley, eh?
This mission isn't really all that hard. I get that some of the timing to change the tracks to dodge out of the way of obstacles can be a bit hard to get the hang of, but to be honest, I've never really had any
Trouble with the trolley, eh?
Collect all the cogs on the tracks and we've solved the I'm not playing it again, and we can move on with 2 out of 2 orbs and 326 out of 400 gems. Thing is, that's the last orb that requires only 2 dragon abilities. Well, there is one more in Zephyr, but there's actually a more effective way to get the orbs we need. In Autumn Plains, if we bash down this wall and use the 2 whirlwinds, we can glide over to the distant orb to nab it in just 3 glides. More importantly though, with just one more glide from here we can get onto the castle wall, then bash down this bit of wall for another orb, meaning that while one of these orbs requires 3 glides, both of them together average out at just 2 uses of dragon abilities. This updates our total for Autumn Plains to 387 out of 400 gems and 2 out of 2 orbs. In Zephyr we can do the second Cowlick Corral level, but instead we're going to be helping out Romeo. To get to the Professor for the first orb we need to use 1 flame and 4 glides for a total of 5 rule violations, which seems like a lot. However, to get to Juliet for the second orb it doesn't require any more dragon abilities. This means that these 2 orbs average out at just 2.5 rule breakages each, which for 3 out of 4 orbs and 291 out of 400 treasure, I'd say it's worth it. With that, all of the orbs we need have been obtained, so we can finally return to Winter Tundra to unlock the door and face Ripto once and for all. This battle is pretty similar to Gulp's fight, though in some ways it's more annoying and other ways less. Instead of bombs, barrels and missiles, this time Hunter will drop these orbs into the arena, and once we collect 3, we'll get a power-up. The power-ups we get are based off of the colour of the orbs, though only the last one you get actually matters for this. We have red for Super Flame, blue for Supercharge, and green for these explosive rocks. Ripto's also trying to get these orbs to power up his own magic missile attacks, but honestly none of these are really that annoying to avoid. Obviously the Flame Breath is a no-go, and to be on the safe side, I'm going to avoid the green power-up, as just like with the Ice Breath in Cloud Temples, since we don't pick anything up with our mouth here, I can't say for sure it's not a modification to our Flame Breath, rather than a replacement. So our only means of actually dealing damage to Ripto here are the blue Supercharge orbs. Of course, Hunter barely ever seems to drop this colour, cause why would he? And when he does, it's usually the first or second orb in the combo, i.e. the ones that don't actually bloody matter for what power up we get. Even if he does drop the right colour at the right time, sometimes he'll just drop it straight onto Ripto's head. Seriously, whose damn side are you on here, dude? Hunter can also, instead of dropping any orbs, drop chickens for us to heal ourselves with, but since we don't want sparks back, this just elongates the agonizing wait for the orbs we need, and while as I mentioned, Ripto's attacks aren't too bad, one slip up and it's back to the start. Once we deal enough damage to Ripto, he'll summon a robotic version of Gulp to help him out, and this is when this fight gets a little more annoying. The RNG luck elements of the last phase still apply, but now Ripto's regular magic missile attacks are the same as in Gulp's battle, aiming for where we're gonna be rather than where we are, meaning that we have to be much more active about dodging them. I'll be honest, I wasn't able to complete both of these phases back to back. I don't know if I was just having bad luck, but I would have to wait several minutes for a chance to actually attack, and remember, one slip up means death without sparks. I was still able to do each of these segments on their own though, which I'm a count, as it does prove that with the right RNG you can do this without using any dragon abilities. After his Gulp form is taken out, Ripto will summon a robotic pterodactyl and take to the air, breaking the arena apart under him, causing it to flood with lava. Luckily though, a new orb rolls in front of Spyro, allowing us to fly in pursuit. Yeah, no getting around this really, we have to fly after and flame Ripto to do damage. With perfect aim, it takes 8 uses of the Super Flame to take down Ripto. I don't have perfect aim. With the final hit dealt, Ripto goes down and Avalar is finally free. So, can you beat Spyro 2, Gateway to the Rage of Ripto without being a dragon? Nah, not even close. You can beat it with just 48 flames and 21 glides, though I think I kind of lost count. I honestly found this run a lot more fun than the first game. I think the fact that we failed so much earlier made the failure hit a lot less hard, and I'm kind of just proud that we didn't need to do any backtracking for more collectibles until the very end. If you have any ideas of ways to fix up any of my screw-ups or ways to do less breakages of the rules, why not let me know in the comments below, and while you're down there, why not consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed. I'm probably the least familiar with Spyro 2 out of the OG trilogy, so it was fun to get an excuse to experience it a little more, though Spyro 3 still remains my favourite of the trilogy. Anyway, until next time, I've been Katie Cat, and thank you for watching. Didn't boil the dirt all off.